Today, we're doing something a little different. We're not just going to read poetry, we're going to try to build it. We're going to look at poetry as the architecture of feeling. All the different blueprints and structures we design to hold our most intense and complicated emotions.
At the core of every single poem ever written, there's this one huge question. Is poetry about control, about giving a beautiful shape to all that inner chaos? Or is it about freedom, about just letting our feelings run wild? That tension right there is the engine that drives pretty much every form we're going to talk about today.
I love that phrase, language under pressure. It's so perfect. Think of it like how coal turns into a diamond, right? The pressure of the rules of a specific form can take a regular old thought and turn it into something brilliant, sharp, and incredibly powerful. So let's start by taking a closer look at that pressure. First up, let's talk about the architects who really believe in blueprints, in rules, in having a solid structure. How is it that strict, and I mean strict, limitations can somehow lead to even more powerful creative expression? It sounds like a paradox, but let's see how it works.
Okay, starting at the grandest scale imaginable, we have epic poetry. We're talking about huge works like John Milton's Paradise Lost. Now, these aren't just telling a story. They're basically an entire civilization building its identity in verse. They use this really structured, elevated form to turn history into legend and make our human struggles feel absolutely timeless.
All right, so let's zoom in from that massive scale to something way more intimate and personal, the sonnet. This form is like the ultimate test of control. It's just a tiny 14-line box. And the poet's job? To fit an entire universe of feeling, love, death, the passage of time, inside that little box. It's the perfect example of that paradox, finding total freedom inside what looks like a prison of rules.
And the rules are seriously strict. Exactly 14 lines, a fixed rhythm called iambic pentameter that's just a 10-syllable line that goes da-dum, 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 kind of like a heartbeat. Plus a rigid rhyme scheme, but here's the most important part. It has to have a volta, which is the sharp turn in the argument near the end. See, these aren't just random rules. They actually force the poet to build a logical case for their feelings, leading to this powerful and often really surprising conclusion.
Of course, for every set of rules, a rebellion is just waiting around the corner. So now we're going to pivot to the poets, who decided to just tear down the whole building, to let emotion find its own, much more natural shape. And that rebellion has a name: free verse. Poets like Walt Whitman really championed this, and at the time, it was a totally radical idea. It just throws out the fixed meter, the rhyme schemes, all of it. The whole point is to sound authentic, right? To capture the real rhythms of how people actually talk and to put the raw, unfiltered voice of the individual first. It's basically the poetic version of democracy. And this table just lays out the two extremes perfectly. On one side, you've got the sonnet. It's rigid, it's measured, and it's all about finding freedom within some really intense restrictions. And on the other side, you've got free verse. It's open, it's flowing, and it's all about breaking free from tradition. They really do represent two completely different philosophies on how to express what's going on inside of us.
But look, it's not always a simple choice between a cage and complete chaos. A lot of the most powerful poetry ever written actually exists somewhere in the middle, finding this really beautiful balance between structure and freedom. Take blank verse. This was Shakespeare's absolute favorite tool, especially in his plays like Hamlet. What it does is it keeps the rhythmic heartbeat from the sonnet, that 10-syllable da-dum line, but it gets rid of the rhymes. And the result is something that sounds both grand and natural. It lets characters give these deep, philosophical speeches that still feel like how a real person thinks. It really is the best of both worlds, controlled freedom.
Now, for a totally different kind of structure. This one isn't based on rhyme or rhythm, but on pure, distilled essence. I'm talking about the haiku. Its one and only job is to capture a single, fleeting moment with absolute crystal clarity.
Its entire universe is built on just 3 little lines.
With the super precise syllable structure, 5 syllables in the first line, 7 in the second, and 5 in the third. And that intense minimalism, it forces the poet to strip away everything that isn't absolutely essential, creating this incredibly powerful moment of stillness for the reader. Just listen to how this classic haiku by Basho works. An old silent pond. Okay, we have stillness. A frog jumps into the pond. Splash. A sudden burst of action. Silence again. And we return to stillness. The form itself creates the whole experience. It's poetry boiled down to its absolute purest form. So when you really get down to it, choosing a poetic form, that's not just a style choice.
Every single choice a poet makes, whether it's a sonnet, free verse, or a haiku, is a philosophical decision. It's a statement about how they see the entire world.
So, just remember this. The epic is trying to build a monument that will last forever. The lyric, like a sonnet, is trying to capture a single, private, intimate moment. And free verse, it just wants to tear down all the walls. Every form is a different tool for a different job, and each one reflects a totally unique way of thinking about the world. And that brings us all the way back to you. I mean, think about your own life, your own creativity. When you have a really powerful feeling or a complicated idea that you just have to get out, what's your first instinct? Do you look for a container, some kind of structure to give it shape, or do you just let it flow wherever it wants to go? There's no right answer, of course, but knowing which way you lean, well, that's the first step to understanding the architect inside of you.
If you enjoyed this little tour through the architecture of feeling, do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe. We've got a lot more explainers breaking down big ideas just like this one. Thanks for tuning in.